Hello guys and welcome back, it's me, Airsick Hydra, down in the corner here. Yoo-hoo, big summer blowout! Anywho, welcome to the Facecam. Hi. This video is going to be focused on new player information, so some of you guys just getting started with the game, this is going to help you out, help you get started with some very basic tips and tricks to make your life easier. Remember, before we get started, click the subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Now, getting started into the meat and potato of this video, I'd like to remind you to join the Discord group. There's loads of players there ready to answer any questions you have or help you out in missions if you need. There's also plenty of staff members during the week, so if you have any game-breaking bugs, they can sometimes give you some advice. I'll leave the description for the Discord down in the description of this video. Now, for the actual gameplay tips themselves, first off, when you make a character, remember what appears to be the subclass choice is only gear choice. Pick any of them, but I would advise against picking the melee character unless you're fairly experienced with ARPGs. Reason being is you only get a set amount of heals per mission, and the melee character will need more heals, therefore you're more likely to die. You will be able to use melee, of course, but you'll probably need certain gear choices, perks, etc. and other stats you'll get from leveling up to make that slightly more viable. But don't get put off, melee is fine, just start off with a gun. Now, on that note, when you first get into a mission, or rather when you first get into a game, jump straight into the shop. Have a look for some better weapons. There will be items there straight away and enough money to buy a couple of things. So have a little look around. If you don't understand what you're looking at in terms of stats, check out my video on character customization. But generally speaking, you're going to be looking for a weapon that has more damage than the one you currently start with. If not, keep an eye out for anything with health regen on. This can also be really useful to mitigate the fact that you only get a limited number of heals. Now, before you jump into missions, I would suggest trying to load yourself out with one weapon at least within your 2 weapons, because you get 2 weapon slots. One weapon which is going to have armor penetration or armor bypass. Reason being, when you meet your first dreadnought, you'll understand why. If you don't have armor bypass, you're going to be there for hours. These guys take ages to kill. But if you have a plasma weapon, a melter gun, I think a power hammer, power axe, it takes half the time and is far, far less painful. So just bear that in mind. Now let's talk about mission selection. So when we're looking at the missions on the star map, you'll see there's a lot of numbers near them. The number really equates to the difficulty in relation to yourself. So if you're number 1 and you go for a number 1 mission, that is normal difficulty. If you're number 1 and you go for a number 2 mission, that is hard, and harder and harder and harder and harder, etc. as the numbers go up. Start off with number 1. You could either go for a mission or an investigation, which is going to be a string of missions, which I'd actually suggest for new players because it starts you off with a very gentle, progressive set of about 5 missions that slowly get harder. So I think that's actually really well suited for new players. Now, during the actual combat itself, try and make use of the shift key. What this does is locks you in place while you click around and shoot. It's called focus fire. This means for abilities like the heavy bolter, where you channel an ability, you constantly channel it, so that can be really helpful. But also if you want to shoot near enemies but you're concerned you might end up clicking the floor instead and you don't want to suddenly run towards them, the shift key is really, really, really useful. As well as the shift key helping you out, do make use of the spacebar. Several people will tell you that the cover system is useless. That is probably because they're over leveled and no longer taking any damage within missions. What I'd suggest you do is ignore them, and when you've got lots of ranged people shooting at you, stick behind some cover, press the spacebar, you'll take less damage, you'll look badass, and you'll take less damage. Very, very useful feature for the game at the mo, especially if you're level 1 trying to take on level 2 or 3 missions. I would say the cover system's almost, well, not mandatory, but very, very handy. And lastly, when you're faced with a big room that includes a dreadnought and lots of scary enemies, remember the dreadnought has a limited aggro range where he will reset. So basically if you walk in there, aggro, walk away, he will eventually get bored and return to his starting position. His health will regen when he does that. What this means though is you can essentially separate the weaker mobs from the dreadnought by going in there, waving your arms around, then running away. This gives you an opportunity to fight the room on your own terms, and I would really suggest doing this against some of these bigger rooms where you're not going to actually have much of a chance otherwise. And that links me on to my final tip, where you will see some enemies, and specifically some demons that have a lot of regeneration. They can almost appear impossible to kill. Here it's really worth having a melee weapon in particular, one that even has a little bit of knockback like the shield, sometimes the hammer. Something that will stun or interrupt an enemy is incredibly useful here because it actually interrupts the healing ability too. Of course, if you're having lots of trouble with the mission though, remember you can ask your buddies to join in, you can ask friends to come along too. Always a lot more fun, and the enemy health doesn't scale with the amount of players we have at the moment. Remember guys, this is all alpha information, so this stuff will change in the near future, and I'll keep the videos up to date. Once again, you've been listening to Hydra. Remember, click the subscribe button. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the game.